There was a point in time when Emoni Bates was supposed to be the next big thing. People called him the best high school prospect in the country regardless of class, in a class of high school players full of future number 1 picks and top 5 guys. He was put on the Sports Illustrated cover at 15 years old, being called the next big thing, following the footsteps of Magic, MJ, and LeBron. He was compared to Kevin Durant as a skinny, tall, shot-making wing. Some even thought he would challenge for the first overall pick in 2023 with Victor Wembanyama. At such a young age, Emoni was hyped up to be the next big-time scoring wing in basketball. But here we are now, and you barely hear about him. After reclassifying up to go to college early and play at Memphis, Emoni had an underwhelming season with the Tigers and eventually transferred following the season to Eastern Michigan, where nobody seemed to talk about him. No longer was he hyped up to be a top 3 pick in the 2023 draft. In fact, many don't even think he's a first-round prospect. However, to me, I feel like the narrative has swung too far in the opposite direction. Sure, Emoni wasn't this generational prospect that he was hyped up to be in high school. Maybe he isn't the next Kevin Durant, then again, who is? But he also isn't a bad prospect either, and shouldn't be viewed as this afterthought that didn't pan out like we do with a lot of hype prospects that don't work out. I still think there is potential with Emoni Bates to be a legit NBA player, and while it may not be the star potential many thought it would be in high school, in my eyes, he's still a legit NBA prospect. I want to start by talking about the reasons I didn't like the hype around Emoni early on in his career. First of all, we shouldn't be comparing any prospect to Kevin Durant to begin with. But the bigger thing for me is that the hype with Emoni created this polarizing discourse where you either loved him or hated him. At least that's how it was viewed among the basketball community. If you liked aspects of his game, people would say you were overhyping him. If you brought up the flaws in his game, people would say you were hating. This is a thing that happens a lot with hyped up prospects. People think you have to pick one side or the other. There's no in between. But my true thoughts on Emoni at the time were in the middle. I liked his shooting ability at his size. I liked some of his tough shot making skills, but I had concerns about his explosiveness as an athlete. He really wasn't a good lateral mover to me. He had a smaller wingspan. Physically, he didn't handle contact well, and he had shot selection problems. Some of these flaws are fixable, some of them aren't. But I still really liked his baseline skill set and viewed him as someone worthy of a 5-star ranking. Although I would say he was closer to that 10 to 15ish range in that class than he was a top 3 guy where he was ranked. And when it comes to his lone season at Memphis, I honestly wasn't as worried about it as most were. Sure, he didn't put up good numbers by any means, but I feel like people were overreacting to the struggles. Yes, he did struggle. It was evident on tape. But at the same time, it wasn't anything out of the ordinary either. Especially when it was a player who should still be in high school playing college basketball. And while yes, Scoot Henderson was doing crazy things in the G League at 17 years old, and Victor Wembanyama was dominating against future top 5 picks that were 2 years older than him at 17 years old. That's true. Emoni isn't that level of prospect, so the expectation shouldn't be for him to dominate college that early on. He may have been hyped up as a Scoot or Wemby level prospect early on, but expectations change over time. There was a point in time where Isaiah Todd was ranked as the number 1 player in the 2020 class, while Cade Cunningham and Evan Mobley were ranked outside the top 25. Things change a lot from when players are first ranked as sophomores to where they are when they're draft eligible. So I never understood why some people weren't willing to adjust the expectations for Emoni as time went on. Emoni flashed his shooting and shot creating ability during his time at Memphis. However, injuries and strength concerns were evident on tape as well, and that played a factor into it. I'm not going to speak too much about the off-court stuff. I know the surface level stuff went on off the court, but I don't like speaking on things that involve young adults without being fully informed on it, and I'm not fully informed on it, so I'm not going to make assumptions about it. However, what I will say is that Emoni has been someone who's very open on the impact of the hype online around him and how it's taken a toll on his mental health and love for the game. And I'm happy for him that he's been able to be open about that, because it's important to know that this still is a kid. And the way I see adults talk about him really does bother me, whether that be on Twitter, whether it be in videos, whether it be in any online forum. Especially when a lot of the hype wasn't created by him. It was created by adults around him. He was just a kid who loved basketball and is really good at basketball. To me, the conversation about Emoni shouldn't be about the hype and what he did and didn't live up to. The conversation should be about the adults who created this hype and expectations for clicks and profit and made a literal child at the time and a young adult now try and live up to it. Now, to talk about Emoni Bates as a basketball player, he's actually been pretty good for Eastern Michigan this season, and I see a lot of signs that make him a legit pro prospect. He's shooting below 35% from 3, but given his volume, shot profile, and age, I do think that there are more than enough encouraging signs on tape for his shooting outcomes. I think he has a decent handle. It's not an elite handle by any means, but it's enough to produce at an above average level as a shot creator. He has tough shot making ability that you just can't teach, and at 6'10", that combination of shot versatility, shot creation, and tough shot making doesn't grow on trees every day. However, I do have my concerns as well. He doesn't handle physicality and contact that well at all. That has a lot to do with a 6'10", 170-pound frame. On top of that, he does have a weird form, which I think is something that will be a question if it will translate to the league. It's pretty funky. He does have a negative wingspan, which does play a factor into that as well. Shot selection does still need work, and I don't think he's a bad passer per se, but he does have tunnel vision issues. Now, he doesn't have much team success at Eastern Michigan, as at the time of recording this video, they are 4-13. That could change because they play tomorrow. At the time of recording, I don't know when this video is going live. However, Emoni has had good games against really good prospects, like against Michigan, who has, in my opinion, a top 10 player in the draft in Jett Howard. It was a game where Emoni showed what he could be at his best. He had 30 points on really good efficiency, hitting tough shots, hitting easy shots, and making really good decisions with his shot selection. Also, he played well against a lottery prospect in G.G. Jackson, where he had 36 points against South Carolina on good efficiency. So, Emoni has sold out against really good prospects, but he also has plenty of games where he's struggled as well. Like with all prospects, you're going to have the good with the bad. To me, Emoni has proven he's at the very least a draftable prospect. He has the baseline skill set of height, shot creating, and tough shot making that you just can't teach. However, he does have concerns as far as strength, finishing, defense, and shot selection. If he gets drafted into the NBA, the thing that will be focused on the most is his frame. The NBA has the best trainers in the world, and it should be focused number one, adding strength. It wouldn't shock me if he spends a lot of time in the G League early on in his NBA career. Second will be fitting his game into the flow of an offense, where he isn't the guy. Outside of a few games with team final on EYBL before he ended up going to Memphis, and his freshman season at Memphis, Emoni had been a basketball player that had the basketball in his hands a lot, and had a lot of freedom as a scorer, which is beneficial for his development. I'm not saying it isn't, and it does help as far as getting to try things at game speed reps. But in the NBA, he's not going to have the basketball in his hands all the time. So getting him adjusted to more of an off-ball role, and even a role where he stands in the corner for a lot of possessions, will be key. Right now, I have a mid-second round grade on Emoni Bates. That also speaks to the strength of this draft class, because in other years, he might be late first, early second, but I just think this draft class is really good. And I actually think that he might intrigue teams in that late first to early second round range as well. I'm rooting for Emoni Bates to succeed. I've enjoyed watching him play this season because he looks like he's having fun playing basketball again, and that alone is something I love to see. But Emoni Bates has legit NBA potential, in my opinion, based off of what I've seen on tape. And hopefully he can find as much success as possible at any level the game is played at, because right now it's just so easy to root for somebody who's been through a lot at an age that you shouldn't expect anyone that young to go through that.